Next up, we will have Miss Jennifer Beckett. I'm excited to introduce Jennifer. Jennifer is, I would like to call her a personal friend of mine. She is currently the Director of Protocol for the Department of the Air Force, which manages and oversees two services. So it would be the U.S. Air Force and the U.S. Space Force under the Office of the Director of the Secretariat. Ms. Beckett is responsible for developing and executing all policies associated with customs and courtesies and etiquette for both the Air Force and the Space Force. And she also serves as the senior official for the coordination and management and execution of all official events for the department. She advises the senior leaders for both the services and their staffs, and is the voice here in Washington, D.C. in the Pentagon for more than 100 protocol offices that support both services worldwide, and over 400 protocol officers, protocol specialists, enlisted aides who support these individuals just throughout the globe. Ms. Beckett is from New Jersey. She's very proud of that. And she began her career with the department in 2004 as a contractor working for the Missile Defense Agency. And then she entered the government after that, working with our Secretary of Defense. She was a protocol lead in the Secretary of Defense's office until she was hired to work with us in 2020 for the Space Force. And just most recently, the two offices for the Department of the Air Force and the Space Force have combined into a single protocol office. And I'm sure you guys can probably imagine the resource challenges they have, which brings us to her topic, the tale of two services, creating a protocol office from concept to execution. Without further ado, I turn it over to my friend and colleague, Jennifer Beckett.
Hello, hello, hello. Can everyone hear me okay?
We hear you and see you, Jennifer. Thank you.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, hello to all of my colleagues within the protocol profession. It is definitely a pleasure to be a part of this special inaugural event, the World Protocol Matters Virtual Conference. I'm really excited about it. I would like to express my deepest appreciation to the Myers Associates, LaDonna, again, close personal friend, to the International Center for Protocol and Diplomacy, to the World Protocol Magazine, for allowing me to be a part of this wonderful meeting of the minds today. Again, as LaDonna stated, my name is Jennifer Beckett. I currently serve as the Director of Protocol for the United States Department of the Air Force, in which I am responsible for all things protocol for two military services, the United States Air Force and the United States Space Force, which is the newest service here in our country in the United States. I was originally hired in 2020, as LaDonna stated, by the Space Force, the newest service, to open and establish their protocol shop. But in April of this year, our department decided to merge the two service protocols, and I was selected to now lead both those offices as a combined office for the department. So I'm really excited to take on this challenge. In today's session, we'll talk about the tale of two services, creating a new protocol office from concept to execution. And to kick off my presentation today, I would like to play this quick 30-second video from the U.S. Space Force. In it, General John Raymond, who is our Chief of Space Operations, he expresses the challenges of the service and why space is hard. So let's check it out. I'm going to share my screen.
You know, space is hard. It used to be all we had to worry about was astrophysics, Kepler's law, gamma rays, solar flares, rocket science, black holes, and the theory of relativity. But now we also track about 30,000 objects, orbiting at over 17,500 miles an hour. And our entire way of life depends on us to protect our satellites from attack day and night. So yeah, space is hard.
So that was a quick video from the United States Space Force that we use for recruitment purposes. But I know for us in our service area, we love to walk around our building to say space is hard. But I like to challenge that and say not only space is hard, but protocol is even harder. So not only do we need to align with the priorities of our service as developed by the Chief of Space Operations, but we also must always consider the veins of our existence, that we are the ambassadors of engagements we produce for our distinguished guests, and that we are responsible for the management of three major factors for our guests. The first factor is we must manage emotions and feelings of our guests. We don't always know what emotions our distinguished guests are feeling when they arrive to our event or activity. So we need to be prepared to manage those emotions or feelings as it relates to the purpose of their business with our leadership. We must also manage expectations of our guests. It is our responsibility to ensure our guests are prepared when they arrive at our events, whether it's coordinating parking, access, weather, food allergies, aversions, seating. Our goal is to make sure all of our senior principals and distinguished guests are prepared to participate in the event or activity so that the goal or the mission of the meeting of the event can be achieved by the senior principals. And we also must manage the experience of our guests. We want to create a positive and memorable experience so that when they want to return and conduct more business with our organizations. So establishing this foundation of purpose as to why, as protocol officers, we do what we do, it helps set the vision for the protocol office, as well as the overall goals and objectives that should carry you through your daily operations. And if you look at the role of a protocol officer, one would realize that the world's entire way of life in any culture does depend on us, the protocol professionals and diplomacy officers of the world who make the magic happen when designing our events and hosting distinguished guests. And with the establishment of a new office, we need to ensure that we set a solid foundation to provide exceptional support so that the service or organization can achieve their overall mission. Just as the Chief of Space Operations set a list of priorities for the United States Space Force, we are empowering a lean and agile service. We're developing joint warfighters in a world-class teams. We're delivering new capabilities at operationally relevant speeds. We're expanding cooperation to enhance prosperity and security. And we're creating a digital service to accelerate innovation. We, as the protocol office supporting these priorities, must establish tools in developing a high-class support system for the senior leadership, and we must be prepared for the incredible high up-tempo of all the engagements that the service leadership, as well as the service workforce, will need to conduct with individuals, both foreign and domestic. And we are keys to all of those factors. So here are my tools for a successful protocol startup. I'm actually going to share my screen once again. So my tools for a successful protocol startup. First off, of course, we need to have a vision. In order to reach your destination, you need to know where you're going. But not only do you need to know where you're going, you also need to know where you come from. In our case, we have been birthed out of the United States Air Force. So we also look back at the overall service of what has worked or what hasn't worked, and how can we modify, how can we improve, how can we refine processes and policies. So we also need to establish that vision so that we can lead the service to a new height. We need to set goals and objectives. We need to set milestones for our teams. We want to continue to be in a process of always achieving or stepping up or refining or moving up to the next level. We also need to coordinate office structure. We need to organize and organize and organize. We need to set up the office organization chart. We need to establish a chain of command. We need to begin to set forth processes and how we want to address any situation that we come up. And we also need to establish policies and processes. What policies will we follow? As I stated earlier, we're birthed out of the Air Force. So some of the regulations or instructions or directives that the Air Force has already established, some of those we may utilize, but we also may refine them to match the time of the day in this day and age. What processes will we use? How do we plan to get things done? We need to set up a process so that the routine is established for supporting our senior leadership and that the goals are accomplished. And of course, this is a big one, hire great people. People are our number one resource and asset. So we need to look for individuals that love to work in the field, look for strengths and weaknesses and see how we can either improve or build on top of those strengths. And of course, we need to promote unity and collaboration between our team members, our vendors, our partners, and anyone that we work with on a daily basis so that we can continue to build the relationships, which is a key factor in the protocol profession all the way around. And then we need to develop a solid rapport. We need to establish reputation with our senior leadership, with all of our vendors and the workforce, and of course, our industry partners, our international distinguished visitors. Once we establish that rapport, then we develop a reliable and consistent performance reputation so that they know that if they ever need assistance, they know exactly who to go to. And that once they come to us, that they know that we would get the job done. And then of course, we need to execute all of our events flawlessly. We need to plan, try to be proactive in all of our planning and do our best to limit our mistakes or downfalls. And then finally, in establishing a new office, we need to maintain consistency. We need to be consistent in all the services that we provide. We need to be reliable and dedicated to the mission so that we can make sure that our senior leadership and the workforce can concentrate on their jobs as far as delivering the missions and the requirements that we set forth out to support the service. And one of the specific challenges of the U.S. Space Force is to establish its own identity within the department, aside from its Air Force sibling. The U.S. Air Force, established in 1947, will be celebrating our 75th anniversary this year. So there's a lot of focus on the Air Force activities and events in 2022. But the U.S. Space Force continues to steadily move along to grow in its own identity and to step beyond the shadows of the Big Brother Air Force. The Protocol Office has an important role to play in this development of the service as the senior leadership continues to engage with their counterparts all over the world and partner in joint warfighting efforts in the space domain. So I hope you learned a little something from the presentation this morning. And I just want to close out of my presentation by saying Semper Supra, which means always above.